Hello, everyone. Welcome. We appreciate your patience. We had some technical issues, but we are finally here. Thank you for waiting and for joining us today. As always, we love to hear where are you chatting from. So use the chat box, type where are you joining us from today. Uh, we have uh, we are starting today a new series of webinars where we're going to have four amazing cycles, four amazing meetings. And today we have the pleasure to have Nick Padwick join us. So we're going to share the screen to have some information, review information with you guys. Sorry. Um, Alex, can you help me, please, with the slide deck? So yeah, while we have the slides coming, we have people from Kentucky, Netherlands, Los Angeles, Alabama, Costa Rica, Canada, Ohio, Ireland. Yeah, so Norway, Australia, Ethiopia. Nick, you are famous, Nick. South Africa, Scotland. We have people from around the globe join us. Slovenia, Italy, India. Yep. Thank you everyone for joining us. Nick, it's I'm excited to be here with everyone and especially with Nick. He's gonna talk about amazing discoveries, his journey, and also share with us, which we appreciate so much, Nick, about his experience and what we can learn with him. So today is the first webinar of this new series. We're going to talk about large-scale compost and regenerative farming. We have the series today with Nick Padwick, and the second webinar, we'll talk on farm soil food web innovations, and will be in 1 week from today. And we're going to have Ib Borub sharing his experience with us. And then webinar 3, revolutionizing tobacco farming with soil health, presented by Reynold Flores. And it will be Halloween day, so be prepared to have some extra fun if you are Halloween, if you celebrate Halloween. And the fourth and last webinar, we're going to talk about ecological land care, a consultant's playbook, and we're going to hear from Todd Harrington a lot of tips and techniques and how he guided his successful business. So instructions for today. I know that you guys know this back and forth, and we love how respectful you all are. We're going to keep you guys muted during the duration of the webinar to ensure good quality of audio for everyone. And please enter the questions for the panelists on the Zoom Q&A session. You have one small box on the bottom bar of Zoom. So for specific questions, please use the Q&A section. And the chat is to interact with all the attendees. If you need support, if you need information from the school, from our courses, please type on chat. And as always, enjoy as much as we do. So introductions, we are on it today for 10 minutes. Then we're going to hear from Nick for 45 minutes. We're going to go through the promotion of this series of webinars. It's about 5 minutes video, 4-ish minutes. And then we're going to have extra fun on a Q&A session for about 1 hour. So today we're going to be together for a total time of 2 hours. Dr. Elaine, our panelists for today, Dr. Elaine will try to join us. She had to go to some private appointments, but she will join as soon as she can. And Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So Nick Padwick, farmer in the UK.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. And we also have Luke Loca join us today. Luke, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Carla. I'm just here keeping Elaine's seat warm. I'm hoping she's going to make it. I think she is on her way. I'm just trying to interact with her by email at the moment to get her here as quickly as possible. I helped Elaine, I had the privilege to help Elaine co-found the school back in 2019. They're wheeling me out today just to keep her seat warm. I won't be able to answer the scientific questions that Elaine would if she was here, but I certainly can help to address any questions people may have about the training programs we have at the school and the new programs that we're launching today as well. Watch this space. There's more coming up on that later in the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. And I'm Carla Portugal, your host for today. I have the pleasure to work for the school for more than 5 years now. So, and I also have my consultancy company, and I'm based in Oregon and do some few works in Brazil, from where I'm speaking today. So we are in all continents today, but we're still waiting from someone in the poles, north or south. Just join us when you can. Nick, take the floor.
Carla, thank you very much indeed. Hi, everyone. Just to start off with, I feel very privileged to be asked to speak at one of these webinars. So I'm going to talk about my experiences as a large-scale farmer in the UK, and also my experiences within the soil food web. So look, farming's in my blood. I'm a farmer son from Hampshire, down on the south coast of the UK, and I've been in mainstream high input, high output agriculture since 1988, a long time, and you can tell by the grey hair. And I've managed some amazing sites throughout my career, and also had the privilege of working in Italy and also in Argentina. I'm currently managing an estate in Norfolk, which is sort of the east of the UK, and that's called Wild Ken Hill. And I've been there now for 6 years, and it's been quite an amazing journey. We were a very conventional farming business, and we've totally changed how we farm. And that journey is through the change has introduced me to the soil food web when I took the foundation course in 22, and then did my CLT and CTP, and after that actually formed my own business called Wild Soils in 2023, which is great. So that's where we are in the UK. We farm 4,000 acres. Our soils are predominantly sands and silts, about 18% clay. The farm has a great history. It's still owned by the members of the same family. A Yorkshire industrialist bought the place in 1864, and it's kind of stayed the same since then, really, in terms of size. Now we are focusing mainly on nature recovery and food production, which are absolute key drivers. We've got quite an amazing opportunity being right on the coast. You can see we're just snugged on the coast there. We've got a bit of conventional conservation with a wetland, so that brings in lots of native birds in the winter. Big area, 1,000 acres of rewilding project, which is great fun. And then we've got our conventional, or what was conventional, arable production. So Wild Soils, I developed that in 23, sorry, and I currently have 4 clients. I'm making lots of compost for them, explaining how extracts work, lots of soil testing for microbes. We also do lots of advice on countryside stewardship schemes and SFI, which is sustainable farming incentive options within the UK for farmers, because I really do think that these options, and we're very fortunate in the UK to have these options, they support what we are doing with the soil food web and our journey throughout the soil food web. And I'll talk about that a bit more as we go through this presentation. And as I said earlier, I feel very privileged to be asked to be part of the mentoring team for the Soil Food Web. So it's a great honor for me. And currently I have 1.6 miles of windrows across the farm, which yeah, it's taken a bit of getting to, but yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there, and we've had lots of mistakes on the way. And the little quote at the top there in the blue, something I really am very passionate about. Coming from, you know, I try and support lots of young people coming into the industry, and the first thing I say to anybody who wants to have any involvement in agriculture or food production, it's, you know, you need to be able to pass go, in my view, before you start your career. Do a Soil Food Web foundation course, because it is absolutely the foundations of everything you will learn. I was 40, I was 54 when I started my Soil Food Web journey. We never got taught anything like this when I was at agricultural college back in the 80s. So anyone who wants to do it, they should absolutely start with a Soil Food Web foundation course. So our journey at Ken Hill came from two reasons. A massive change from conventional agriculture, and that was the worsening biodiversity climate crisis we were all seeing in the UK and around the world. We were also seeing our subsidies, so the money we got for growing food, that was being reduced, and that was a payment given to everybody on a per hectare or per acre basis. So that goes in 2027 is our last payment. So we wanted to do something really quite dramatic to give us a really great step change into a new generation of agriculture, which we felt we were just on the edge of working towards. And we were seeing a lot of things like this. So this is very conventional. This is our conventional team. We have sands and silts, as I said. So in the spring or the autumn, we have a lot of blow, a lot of wind. So obviously a lot of dust blowing, humus blowing across the fields. When we're planting, because we're just moving the soil and it's just like talcum powder. It's just, you know, it just blows everywhere. Very deep, heavy cultivations. The picture on the right, we're doing a lot of ploughing, using a lot of root crops, lots of sugar beets, lots of carrots and potatoes. Even though we don't irrigate anything on our farm. Thankfully, we don't have an irrigation license, so we don't put any water on. So very heavy labor power, diesel, machinery, wearing parts, intensive agriculture. And we were putting more and more inputs into growing the same amount of crop. And we were seeing our weather patterns, certainly in this region, change so dramatically that if we have 2 or 3 weeks of dry weather, our plants would start to die. We would see the tillers from the plant start to wither and die. And we looked at our water holding capacity of our soils, and you know, there wasn't any. It was just, you know, it was just dirt. And this, you can see a lovely picture of our soil there. As you can see, we've got much clay. And this was a real one of my haha moments when we were doing some soil analysis. And this company, for those you don't know, the company on the left-hand side is Frontier, which is part of the Cargill operation. So I got involved in the Soil Food Web, and we started to really focus in on our soils. And that journey started for me. The picture on the right shows two soils, both from the same field. The darker chocolatey color soils was taken from 4 meters away from a hedge that was on a margin that hadn't had a crop in it for over 25 years. So it was involved in conservation. So lots of conservation, lots of wildlife, and we hadn't disturbed it for 25 years. And the soil on the left, if you walk a further 5 yards into the field where we were cropping, that's the difference between the two. And looking at the SMAP result on the left-hand side, we weren't seeing a lot of fungi. We were seeing a lot of bacteria. Look at that, gosh, in the 30,000 mark, and not a lot else. And certainly the soils that I've tested over 2 or 3 years now, you know, we're building up such a picture now of degraded soils and high bacteria, very low fungi, very little protozoa, and certainly where we've grown lots of roots, very little nematode to be seen. So I wanted to do something about this. And this just illustrates how the timeline of our farm at Ken Hill along the top played out with my soil mentoring and soil food webbing at the bottom. And we're now at a point where we've made lots of mistakes, lots of learnings, making our windrows and our compost, which we'll touch on in a minute, and how we can scope this up. So this is our biggest thing now. It's great to do this. It's you know, to be able to work at small scale. Yep, absolutely fantastic. But when you've got 400 hectares and neighbors who are really interested, so you potentially got 2,500 hectares of land that you want to try and change, you struggle to do it with the kind of machinery I was using prior to now. So let's get right into how we started making our compost. So we started with our round little towers, and we had lots of success with those, lots of learnings, but also lots of success. And the biggest success for me was being able to get the recipe right and understanding how that recipe changed throughout the season, at the beginning of the spring, and then at the end in the autumn. And then using different types of material, different high nitrogen materials, different green materials, and also the woody wide carbon to nitrogen ratio materials. So I did all my learnings, or quite a lot of them, on the round towers. And we started using the GOT maker. You see we've got 2 GOT makers there from the States. And there's a picture there of two nice towers. One was really high levels of protozoa, and one had really high levels of fungi. So I kind of blended them to make a mix. And so we were putting these extracts on our soils, but it was taking me ages to bubble up some extract to get to the right biology within that extract to be able to put it on. It was taking ages for me to do that, to try and cover, 400 hectares. So we then started looking at, okay, so how do we scope this up? We scope it up by hopefully going to a windrow. And we had some cow muck, which was from a neighbor, which we started to use. And we started making windrows with cow muck and wood chip. And we had lots of success and lots of learnings with cow muck, how the age of it, how fresh it was, determined how much nitrogen was in it. That was a great learning for us. And the picture on the top right, you can see we've got different stages of compost being made there. The one in the row in the middle is nearly finished. And then we've got a young one at the far end, and it was midway through where the thermometer is. So to make the compost was really, really great. And then we mentioned about making different types of compost. So within those towers, I'd used different materials to make the compost. And it was quite incredible. After the maturing period, we'd gone through all the heating stage, went through the maturing period, and I was monitoring every sort of week, 2 weeks, the level of microbe either increase or tail off or decrease within those three different wind towers. So that was really it was a great learning, a really good learning for me. So experimenting is something that I enjoy doing, and I'm still doing now to help with my compost production. But to scope up to become, to be able to make 1.5 miles of windrows, that takes a lot of material, yeah. And we mentioned the schemes, the government schemes that we get offered, and some of these schemes really help us on this amazing soil food web journey, where we can plant in some herbage lays, different levels of legumes and grasses and all sorts of herbs as our green and high nitrogen material, and then mix that with the wood chip. So we were just trying to scale it right up. So we went away from using 10-litre buckets to make our rounds to using forklift buckets. So would hold a ton, if not 2 tons of material. So that's how we did our measuring to get the right proportions of green and woody material. So government schemes have helped us on this journey, and we've planted here a herbage lay. This is early spring, and then we windrow it, but we collect it straight away. As soon as it's cut, we collect, and we've been working with the length of the cut, so the length of material that we're using, and I think I've come to the conclusion that we've gone too long. So that collector, that forest collector, was literally just collecting the cut grass, and I think we were too long in terms of length of material. So we've shortened up that material. So we've got a shorter cut. We think it's kinder to the composter, and it kind of makes quicker, gets hotter quicker. So we've had a lot of learnings with that. And go back one, sorry. So we've also looked at how we take material from the spring and how we take material from the autumn, and how different that really is. So the picture you see, looking over the wash, looking over the sea, which is really, it's a lovely view of the estate. In the autumn, we need to use obviously a lot more high nitrogen materials to make our compost. And this was an experiment we did. So we had a rye crop, a winter rye crop growing, and we put an understory of clovers in the canopy of the rye. And then once we harvested the rye with a combine harvester, a conventional combine harvester, we captured all that amazing solar radiation, where most of our neighbors have cut the wheat, cut all the crops, and they're bare soils, bare stubbles, soil's getting hot. We were managing to capture all that amazing solar radiation. So lots of root exudates, hopefully feeding life in the soil. And the clover grew, as you can see. And then we came and we windrowed that clover. And you can see a more of a detailed picture of that below. And we then started making compost in the autumn. So we're getting kind of 2 bites of the cherry here. We're getting a physical crop, and they're also getting a really lovely material to make compost. And obviously you still got green material underneath. And this was going to be an overwinter cover. So this was still with the leaves on the trees still. So this would have been late September. So some of that would have grown back, had a nice cover for the winter to stop any soil erosion that we would see. We're on a little bit of a hill, a little bit of a slope. So we'd have stopped all that erosion, and we'd have covered our soil, living root in the soil throughout the winter. And then we literally, when we're making our compost, I think I'm quite practical, and we just get on with it. So we lay our wood chips. You can see in this picture, we've laid our wood chips down to, I believe, the right proportions. and I have an amazing guy who's on the forklift who then literally picks up the grass and the high nitrogen and the grass, and we just lay it on top of the wood chips, and we kind of get the proportions of kind of about right, and we then start mixing. So let's see if this works. I don't know how to do this, guys. You might have to help me with this. Well done, thank you.
You got it.
It's a bit lumpy, I'm afraid, but one of the major learnings we had with this compost, and for those of you who make compost anyway, it's the moisture content is so critical. We've made a lot of compost that's got to that point where it's the right moisture content, but in the spring with the wind, it's kind of dried out. And then you've got to try and hydrate it again, which is, it's tough. Very, very tough indeed. Can we go back? We've jumped quite a few there. Sorry, guys. I'm not driving, Carla. I'm not driving this very well.
It's dynamic, Nick. You go as it flows.
I'm sorry, everyone, for this. But you're getting a snapshot of what we are going to talk about. Hold on. I think we're nearly there. Please.
We are chasing a nematode, Nick. So
we are absolutely. So the moisture content, obviously, once you've cut it and it's as green and as fresh as we cut it, you get natural moisture, yeah, and it turns very quickly. And this is like 24 hours. We're seeing this heat build up in 24 hours, which is quite insane. But in the spring, as I was saying, in the spring, without applying water to the compost in windrows, within the second, in our experience, kind of the second turn throughout the making process, it dries out and it just stops making, and you get to, that you lose the heat. And we've tried all sorts of things with that, and the first composter we bought didn't have any water ability to apply water. We very soon learnt that water is still very, very critical. I thought there'd be enough natural water within the compost. So we fitted on this water application machine, and we got to a point where we were to take a compost that had dehydrated to rehydrate. We were going through it probably twice and putting on 50 litres a meter on every application, those two applications. So we were topping about 100 litres a meter to rehydrate. But thankfully, it kind of heated up again and off we went. So we didn't lose anything. But applying water is now absolutely critical throughout this compost process. While you're going through the heat, the heat and dropping down, up you go again. I can't stress that enough. And we are now starting to use sheets in the winter to just cover our compost. We've had some dreadful weather last winter, and it kind of, our compost ruined a bit because it was just outside. We had no way. When you've got a mile and a half of compost, that's a lot of plastic, and I don't like using plastic so much. So we were taking a bit of a chance. So making sure the water application is correct is absolutely critical. So just again, some more picks on the composter. We bought a Gouja composter, which works incredibly well. We have the ability to be able to have a sheet. We have the sheet guides on the top of the hood, those 4 points that are sticking up. So when we have our sheets on, it'll just pick the sheet up, turn the compost, and lay the sheet back down again. So that's great. And we make sure we've got adequate amount of water that we can apply. And we're towing, we've got 2,000 litres of water in those IBCs, and then we tow 7,000 litres behind us as well. And that transfers over into the tanks. And we see this amazing bloom of fungi coming through sort of 3 or 4 months into some of our windrows, which is very exciting. And making sure, again, I've dealt with a lot of people who are making compost, which is brilliant, and we, you know, loving their enthusiasm and drive, and you know, it's really, really great. But I do worry when they're making their compost and they think they've got this amazing product and they're then applying it. I just really worry that what's actually in that compost. So moving on from the foundation course, the next thing that everyone needs to do is the microscope course, because without being able to, you know, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I had a guy who gave me some compost, and he said to me, Nick, I've been making this amazing compost. And I said, it looks incredible. And it did. It looked great. It smelt aerobic. There was no other sort of smell to it. It looked fantastic. And I stuck it under my microscope, Carla, and whoa, there's nothing in it. There was bacteria. And this guy was just so upset because he'd gone for all this effort, but he hadn't followed the principles that the Soil Food Web teach us to make compost. And then I stuck some of my compost, which looked as good as his, and his eyes just went, whoa, God, is that what I'm expecting to see? You know, it's that moment when they see all this life. Every field of view you go to, there's something there, you know, where there's a bit of fungi or a nematode, or my favorite, a nice testate amoeba, you know, just whizzing through and seeing all this life that's in your compost. So I would urge all of you that are making compost, it's absolutely critical that you do the microscope course as well, to be able to assess what you've got, because this guy could have been putting on this amazing compost, which would be in great organic matter, but he wasn't actually getting the full benefit of what he was trying to do. So the compost workbook that's available is just incredible. And I make compost for a few people, and we use this book where I can have live sessions with people, and I can make the windrows with them. We can look at their material, so we're calculating the recipe, and how very important that recipe really is. It's absolutely critical to making really good quality compost. Take the time to get quality materials and get that right, and then filling in every day the temperatures and the moistures as I've done here. So this was Carla. This was one of my exam pieces for my CTP. Incredible, and it works really, really well. So I would again urge everyone that if they're making compost, to get the results they want at the end of it, you know, go through these procedures, and making sure you're temperature probing, not just in one place, multiple places where we're doing temperature probes, because that heap may look like it's the same, you know, everything's steaming, getting warm, but gosh, it changes dramatically throughout the heap. It really does. It's incredible. And there we are. Look, microscope. Gotta have one. I have two. I have one at my office at work, and I have one at home. And I spend a lot of time sat on my microscope and just measuring the availability of microbes that I've got in that compost, because I might be able to manage that, might be able to change it. So it's knowing what you've got is really, really important. Carla, I'm going to muck this up again. How do I play this, Carla? Are you able to help me?
Yeah, Alex is on it.
Oh,
Is a video?
Yeah, should be a little video.
It's not a video, it's an image, Nick.
Oh, it's image, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, look, this was just a brief image. There is a video that goes with it. I do apologize. And we got a lovely testate amoeba there. Of those you can spot it. And there's a lovely fungal hyphae that runs from top left to nearly bottom right. And then we've got a beautiful flagellate. Yeah, thank you, Alex. We've got a beautiful flagellate that was bumbling around to the left of that fungi. So it's really things like that that just get you totally excited by compost and what you can put on that on the soil. Okay, so there's a lot of farmers who are quite skeptical in my area about what we're doing, especially coming from a guy who's lived his life opening a bottle and opening a bag and thinking that's the result of everything. That's going to produce all our food and not worrying so much about what's going on under our feet. So is this stuff really working? And being quite cynical, I thought at the outset, as I was going through the course, does it really work, this stuff? Well, look, I've got several fields. This is one in particular. And we did a soil test on the 5th of April 2023. There's been 3 other soil tests since that, 2 other soil tests since that. And the application has been 3 tons of compost, solid, per hectare. It's also been 4 applications of 400 litres a hectare of a compost extract. So that's taken me from the levels you see at the beginning of the slide there, so in the 5th of April, to where we are now on the 25th, or where we were on the 25th of May. So look, great levels. Our levels of bacteria have come down, protozoa numbers have gone up, and we've seen our fungal hyphae increase. We're not quite at the 1-to-1 stage we need to get to for our successional stage for our plants that we're growing, but we're at 0.6. We've come from 0.01. And we're only year 1, guys. Year 1. We've had 50, 60 years of devastating soils with chemicals and plows and cultivators and all the things that we've done to produce our food. So I'm absolutely amazed that I've moved the dial as quickly as we have in that shorter period of time.
Nick, just a clarifying question for people who might not be familiar with what's happening in the biology. You mentioned that the bacterial numbers have come down and protozoa numbers have gone up. Can you explain the relationship between the two, please?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Sorry, Luke. So yeah, protozoa, they eat bacteria. They love them. So if you get those protozoa numbers, and the protozoa family being the main ones being testate and naked amoebae and flagellates, ciliates as well, but you don't want to see too many ciliates. They're indicators of low oxygen in soils. But they will chow down, they will consume vast quantities of bacteria. And as you can see, our numbers of bacteria are really high at the beginning and our protozoa numbers are really low. So if we look at the correlation between the higher the number of protozoa, the lower, hopefully, that number of bacteria will be. And that will release, because they're eating, and the carbon to nitrogen ratio of the bacteria and the carbon to nitrogen ratio of the protozoa, they are releasing, they're taking on all the carbon they need, but they're taking on too much nitrogen. So they release that nitrogen as ammonium into the soil profile around that rhizosphere, which is ideal. And then the fungi, as that starts increasing, those bad boys start releasing mild acids into the soils to release those nutrients between the crystalline layers of the sand, silts and clays. So we're getting that life back into our soils. So we like to see the numbers of bacteria go down. We like to see that correlation of protozoa going up. And we would also see, and you can just see in the bottom left that SMAP. We got good levels of bacterial feeding nematodes, and they'll do the same. They'll chow down, they'll whiz round through that soil sample, snakes, and they'll start chowing down on all that amazing bacteria, and they'll be releasing ammonium into the soil. We have got to a point where our compost, we've got over per gram, I've got a number of over 1 million a gram of protozoa in a gram of soil. So really, really high levels of protozoa. And we can start seeing these numbers of bacteria just dropping away, as you'll see in a minute. Does that answer the question, Luke?
Thank you. That was brilliant. It was a great refresher for me. I haven't seen one of these lectures for a long time. You did a fantastic job. Thanks.
So I just wanted to give you an image of what a quantity of compost looks like on my bare soil. So I'm pressing the reset button now. As I've learned all this stuff, I'm now pressing the reset button on my soils, and we're doing small chunks or large chunks of soils and hitting them hard with 5 tons a hectare of compost. And that's what that looks like. So you can see a lot of space that hasn't had any compost. And you know, that's huge spaces where there's no compost. And then we follow that up with an extract, but we then lightly cover that soil when we're planting. So we did this a year ago on a soil that was very similar to this. Our soils don't change much at Ken Hill. And then this May, I was digging some of my soil with plants in it. And I have never done this before in my entire life as a farmer. So digging the soil, wow, look what I see. Fungal hyphae, you dig the soil and you can see it. I have never, ever seen that before. And the structure of the soil, just utterly insane. So those are the numbers you were seeing in that slide just now. So really great levels of fungal hyphae within that first year. Now we were very, very wet last spring, so that helped our soils, but we're getting more structure within our sands and silts, which is really hard to believe you can do in sand and silt. We've got an element of clay, but it's only 18%, but we're starting to see structure build within our soils. So positive at the moment.
That's amazing, Nick, because you've been farming for over 40 years and you've literally never, I know we talked about this before the webinar, you've never seen mycorrhizae or mycelium like that in the soil visible to the naked eye in over 40 years.
No, never seen it when we've dug soil. And the smell as you dig it, the sweet geosmin smell, it's just fills the air, and it's just incredible. And we're also making compost from waste materials. So this is a cutter that cuts above the crop height. So this is a plant we have in the UK called brome, sterile brome, and it's a grass weed, and we have lots of it on our farm, and because we don't use chemicals and fertilizers anymore, we're not organic yet, but we're going through the conversion period. I wanted to remove as many seed heads as we possibly could. So this cutter just goes above the crop and cuts off that level of seed head. It puts it into the middle of the machine and puts it in the cart you can see at the back. I then took that material, added some wood chips in it, added a bit more green, a bit more high nitrogen, and we made compost. Now, if I said to a farmer, would you like some of my compost because it's made of brome? He would say, you must be joking, Nick. We're not going to touch that. We're going to have brome in our fields. We're going to contaminate our fields with brome seeds. Why would I do that? But going through the heating process, if you get it right, gone, it's dead. We left that pile for nearly a year just to see if anything would grow back, and it didn't. And then we took a soil sample, goodish levels of fungi, low levels of lower levels of bacteria, not quite biocomplete standard, but great levels of protozoa. And look at those bacteria feeding nematode numbers. Just insane. They were like snakes going across my screen. Just incredible. So we can, you're thinking outside the box, we can do other things with making compost. It doesn't have to be amazing material all the time in terms of fresh material. I think we've done that one. It's a double. Okay, Alex, you're going to have to help me with this one. So this is something we've just started to use now on our farm. This is us actually applying an extract at scale. Now, this is the first time I've ever shown this video. I'll tell you a bit of a story about how we physically got there. So after using small little applicators to apply volumes of extract into the soil, if I can go back. Oh no, let me go forward one more. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Oh, I've missed one. There's one missing. Okay. To make our extracts, we were making it out with the GOT maker, and as I said, it was really slow to make, and I didn't feel we were getting enough of the microbes into the water, into the solution. So we went large scale, and I'm now using a 5 mil hole sieve, and getting more microbe. So I basically, at the end of it, I've got washed wood chips at the end. Everything else is going on the field. And this company, Toe and Fur from New Zealand, I designed a cage, a basket that sits into this machine, and it gets lifted up by the use of the HIAB. And with air and water, it bubbles through the compost, and we can then scope up and scale up the application of really high levels of microbe into the soil, or we can put in some seeds in the top, and we can inoculate those seeds and apply the seeds through the nozzles. There's no filter in this machine. It's high capacity, low pressure. So we get to 1.3 bar only. So we're within the tolerance of the 2 bar max. And yeah, we're getting more bang for our buck to apply this. So I believe from Toe and Fur, this is the first one they've made in terms of the basket that goes with it. Make lots of Toe and Furs, but this is the first one they've made. So we're looking at how we can. There's still some modifications we need to make to get us kind of over the line. How much time have we got, Carla? Am I over?
You carry on, Nick. Carry on. This is really interesting.
This is the one. This is the one. Sorry, guys. This is the one I was after. So yeah, look. We started with the picture on the left. So we just got a round bit of mesh, and I put some compost in it in my GOT maker, and then got a paddle on my drill and just spun it round. Quite slow revolutions, nothing too fast. And it was still bubbling. So I was still bubbling it. And then we had washed chips out the end of it. And then we were applying it through the Toe and Fur. And you can see the bottom right, the little basket by the trailer. This is on another friend's farm. The HIAB reaching out with a chain on it, and then we lift it over the top and drop the cartridge into the tank. And then the principle, as you see on the left-hand picture, happens inside that tank. So we get kind of washed chips when we come out, and we put those chips straight back into the compost pile. You know, we don't waste anything. Come on, you know, that's. There'd be mycelium stuff.
Yep.
Absolutely. Why throw that away? Come on, chips are expensive. Let's, and we felt that we were getting more bang for our buck and more coverage by using the extracts than we were the physical compost for us. And then we obviously financially as well, we were looking at how much it was costing for us to make compost. I'm really into my numbers, figures, when I'm setting my budgets and my forecasts on the farm. And it was costing us anywhere between 36 and 45 pounds, 46, $58 per ton of compost to make. And that is literally from that first photograph you saw of the man cutting the grass and us going through the whole process, the man on the forklift, the man turning it 4 or 5 times, the whole process. And that's what it cost us, because we have to use contractors. So I know what the bill is. And then if we were applying that as a compost, depending on the level of microbe, again, you need your microscope to know what levels you need to be applying it at. That could be anywhere between 80 and 200 pounds a hectare. So that's, it's huge sums of money. That's nearly what I would pay for the 200 pounds a hectare is what I would pay for fertilizer in the UK for a season. It's big numbers. So I thought that by using extracts, we would be able to use a lot less. And the price would then come down for not just for me, but for my neighbors and other people who wanted to be involved in it. Now, I haven't put a price on that because it depends on so many different things, but I would suggest it's below the £80 a hectare number for one application. But it all depends on the level of microbe you've got in your compost and how strong you want the mix. There's so many different factors as well, Carla, when you're actually applying this. It isn't just a set amount. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing in terms of our compost and how we're actually starting to try and apply this now to a large-scale farming business. And I just would like to just take 5 minutes if I can. I'll whiz through this, Carla. My CTP training, and I was desperate to do some grow some huge quantities of lettuce or crops, but I was told by the school, no, small little plots. So I had to restrict my ambition, and we grew some crops of lettuces. One was water along the bottom, and one had a biocomplete extract on the top, and it was 90 days it took to grow. The results there, and we weighed every single lettuce. We didn't cut any leaves off at all. So we cut it right at the bottom and we weighed the whole thing, whether they were damaged leaves or not. We just weighed the whole thing. So we were getting more lettuces. But the thing that really, really got me blown away was the nutritional value of those leaves. Guys, just, in our diets, if we're reducing in our current diets, we're not taking the right amount of minerals into our bodies. Those lettuces with the biocomplete extracts, and we only put 3 applications on. We had it SAP tested by an independent company. So I didn't do that. It's an independent company. Everything was higher. And if we're using this in carrot production or just veg production, just think of all the amazing minerals we're getting into our bodies at the standard levels or the levels we were using with an untreated. So it does work, Carla. This stuff does work. And our soils, again, we'll just quickly go through these. Our soils were pretty low, yeah? So our fungi at the start of the pre-planting, look, nothing. Our soils were dead. Nothing in our soils at all. No fungal hyphae. And then we saw our bacteria numbers. they were quite low, really, considering, and they dipped where we put the treatment. The treated is in blue, green is untreated, and the untreated started increasing, but the blue started reducing, and we all know why, because the protozoa numbers were increasing. So there we are, 250,000 nearly, versus something that had nothing. And that is what's making all the difference to what we are growing. And the biology, you can see there how the biology is changing. The fungal to bacteria ratio has changed. And I think we got one more, which is showing, yeah, also the water holding capacity of our soils. We had a lot of rain that year, and actually we were starting to see the water holding capacity of our soils improve over those 3 months we did all the testing. So my conclusions were the weight of the lettuce increased, which is great. So yield was up. The SAT test was showing that that there was more nutrient within those leaves, and we had higher levels of biology within the treated plots, better water infiltration. Remember, it's only 90 days. And we also did bricks testing as well, and the bricks levels had started to improve on the stuff that was treated over the untreated. So Carla, I think I've gone way over time. I do apologize.
No, nothing to apologize for. It was like nail it.
And I think that's me done, I think, Carla.
Yeah. So Nick, before we jump to the video, I want to just like hit up a little bit for the Q&A, and I will take the time. I'm gonna get that privilege to ask you some questions before we jump to the video and the Q&A. We saw in your presentation, thank you for sharing those data, they're powerful, that you really immersed on that. You went full mode in the process. And can you tell us a little bit what have been the key benefits to your career in lifestyle? Because we see a lot of people join the program, join the foundation courses, and they talk about this life-changing experience. How was that for you? Is that true for you as well?
Yeah, look, when we started the foundation course, it was something I was doing at weekends as well as a full-time job. So it did take me the full year to do. I was panicking at the end. You guys were going to kick me out because I was literally a day before my first year. I would have got an email from Luke, I'm sure. And once I'd started it, it was that moment you think, wow, this is just utterly insane. Why haven't I been doing this for years? And I actually started saying, I'm 56 at that point. God, I wish I was 30, because what I know now, it would have been amazing.
We always go with 30, Nick.
So that for me had been amazing. I decided to. Someone told me, you know what you ought to do, Nick, is set up your own business. No, I've always worked for somebody. I've always, had a job and worked for somebody, but they convinced me that actually, you need to do this. You need to set up, and I've set this company up called Wild Soils. A bit of promotion there, and it's going from strength to strength. So much so that I should be employing somebody shortly, which is great news, and I can see it growing and growing and growing. I mean, as people start doing more of this and understanding more about it, there needs to be more people doing the courses to get out there, because there's room for everyone. Yep. There's absolutely room. We have got such a big job on, and the community need to all come together and work on this. It has been life-changing for me. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And I had a great privilege of also going on the Create course with Nicole Masters as well, which was just, it's great. So yeah.
Powerful as well. Yes, I totally agree. So Nick, connecting to the previous question, and again, here, I'm being a bit selfish because I'm going to put my questions first, but we're going to get to yours, guys. You working as a farmer your entire life, you decided to go to this consultancy path with the consultant training program. And we also have a lot of students that are farmers, so they share this background with you, and we know that this makes a huge difference on the perception of the course, on the actions they need to take on a daily basis routine. And we have students that also want to take the courses because they want to create a second income, or some just want to learn new things. And but on the bottom of everything, everyone approach us because they are interested to help the region to transition for a regen egg procedure, to enhance the quality, like you show us the beautiful lettuce sap, which is just like, I need to taste Nick Padwick lettuce now because I imagine the flavor. And what made you choose the consultant training program and not the growing training program? Just for those that don't know, the consultancy training program is guiding you to the consultancy path. The grower training program is if you want to do just on your farm.
I think, thanks, Carl, for that question. I think I love trying to explain and show people what I've been able to achieve, and I've done that throughout my whole career. And I just felt I could actually share and help other people on this journey, and I really wanted to do that. So the consultancy training was absolutely a no-brainer for me. It had to be consultancy because I'm not a shy chap. I like to talk to people, and because I've on my background in agriculture, when I'm stood in front of lots of farmers, there's some credibility because they know I've done it and I can talk about it. I've had those experiences in conventional ag, and I can talk them through my journey and kind of get them over the line. So I thought it was really important to try and spread the message, and go consultancy rather than just grower, because I haven't got long left, Carla. Look at me. You know, I needed to share it with as many people as I possibly could.
Thank you, Nick. That's very powerful. I think that every time we stop to share what we know, we learn more than we share. So I think that's just like this dual path that is enriching. So I'm gonna start with our participants' questions, and we have many of them. Thank you so much, everyone. I always have fun seeing all these questions because kind of, yay, thank you. One of the first one, sorry, is from, come on, just a second, Verinder. How long did it take to go from start to a final compost? And also tell us a little bit more of this experience of this beast that's your 1.5 length compost. I think that's everyone is really curious about how do you tame this beast?
So let's do the beast first, Carla. Let's get the beast spoken about first. So most of that was we had a very good growing season last year in the UK, and it wasn't typical, and everything grew. Yeah, so I had a lot of material, and I didn't want to waste it. I had plenty of chips, lots of wood chips, so I just kept on making because I knew we would use it, and I obviously had to re-budget because it was the cost of it, but the farming business, and actually the guy that owns the farm, he was so intrigued as to what I was doing. He's also taken the foundation course, and he got a distinction. And he's a businessman in London, you know, and he's got a distinction. So fair play to him. So he actually understands. He understands what I'm trying to achieve, which is absolutely fantastic, you know. So we were able to make use of all that amazing material that we had that was going to go to waste, potentially. We could have put some sheep on it. We could have put some cattle on it, which would have done something else good to the soil. But I wanted to make compost because I knew I was going to use it all. And I've now got a program, because 6 months max is my age of my compost. And I work out where it's going, and I make it in certain areas so it's not too far away from the field that I'm actually going to apply it on, or the areas of fields I'm going to apply it to. So yeah, it just grew, Carla. It just grew. And it wasn't until I measured how much we'd got, I realized, wow, okay, fair enough. That's a lot of compost. And what was the first part of the question again? Sorry.
Yes. How long did it take to go from start to final on the compost piles?
Well, for me,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, for me, that depends on so many factors. In the spring, it's quite a rapid process with all that amazing high nitrogen. You need less high nitrogen material. You get more bang for your buck in the spring than you do in the autumn. So the temperatures help as well. The ambient temperatures help. As long as you're piling water on and keeping that moisture going, it'll go quite quickly. So we could have gone through the heat process, probably turn it 3 to 5 times in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. So it will turn really quickly. You know, we've gone to a period where we've turned 24 hours later and we've hit our 170 again, or 77. We've hit that again in 24 hours, you know. That's the quickest. The slowest, it's been 72 somewhat hours, 60, 72 hours. So all depends on quite a few factors, Carla.
Yeah. And is that factor as well that once you understand all your feedstock material in your recipe, you can program, because you know that you have that window every single time. So that's the power of the process.
It is absolutely, you're dead right. Yeah. That gives you, so once you've done it for the first year, you kind of go, right, I can make the spring stuff really quickly, which is good because you could potentially make more of it as well, getting the cuts off quickly and making more and more. And one thing we are doing, Carla, which is I would urge quite a few people to do if they could, is not everyone can afford, you know, a Guja composter and a tractor and all the equipment, but we need to help everybody. So at Ken Hill, we're a compost hub. So I'm sure there's loads of hubs everywhere, but we help other people. Yeah, we help other farmers, and you know, we can take material to them. They can come and get it. You know, we do it for them. You know.
Yeah, that's powerful. Huh? Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well done, Nick. That's fantastic. And I know you've got a vision for hubs across the whole United Kingdom, right? So that everybody, all farmers, can access phenomenal compost, which is just amazing.
But again, Luke and Carlo, it's about making sure that your third party who's making the compost has a microscope, has the attention to detail, because you can ask the current Mrs. Padwick. It takes up your life, and I just love it. You know, it's this living thing that is you've got to keep on it. You know, and the rewards are amazing, and that's when you look in the microscope.
Yeah, and I remember you saying that you have 2 microscopes, one in the workplace and one at home. And my husband often just like, are not going to sleep. And it's like, when I take a look, it's already midnight and I'm still in the sample, scavenging, hunting the microorganisms, because it's really like, it gets you. You go there and you want to know more. So that's
you want to know more. You want to know more. And actually, you know, the soil food web, you know, the community within the soil food web, where, you know, if you see something under a microscope that you've not seen before, you know, I can remember seeing my first diatom and I just fired it out. What's this? It's amazing. Oh, it's a diatom. And you can then start reading about it. So by taking the courses, that's when you finish, that's just the start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not starting when you start the foundation, it's when you finish it That's when you actually start.
That's true. And now I'm going to move you to the tropics. The next question is from Geronimo. In the tropics, is it necessary to compost, or chop and drop is more beneficial than using compost?
Whoa, whoa, Carla, you're going to be in a better position to answer that than me. In the tropics, wow. Chop and drop. Look, we've actually done some of that ourselves in the UK, where we have actually taken some of our material and we've chopped and dropped. And in terms of soil health, yeah, I mean, it's been great. We've seen some great improvements, but it's been in that journey. So it's not been, we've actually inoculated our soils with compost and extracts before we did our chop and drop. We didn't just do chop and drop. What we have done, though, what we have seen is in the UK, we've got a lot of farmers that are using cover crops, which is great. Really, really, it's lovely to see. But we did this 5 years ago, sorry, and we took a soil sample at the beginning of the 5 years. No applications of any synthetic inputs at all, no fertilizers, no chemicals. We had sheep in between two of the crops in between. It was a ley, so it had legumes, shepherd's parsley, burnets, grasses. And then 5 years, we then took another soil sample thinking our soil health is going to be amazing, Carla, because we've put no fertilizer on. We've done nothing with it. The results were exactly the same. Because we hadn't inoculated our soils. I think in maybe 100 years, if we'd kept on like that, yeah, maybe it would have changed. But not in 5. Not in 5 years.
Yep.
We wouldn't have changed. Wouldn't have seen that difference we've seen on the presentation. So yeah, I don't know whether in the tropics it would work better than it worked in Norfolk.
Yeah, I think that you touched on a very good point. I think it really depends on so many factors. Of course, in this case, climate would be the first approach, but we also need to understand why or when you're going to use compost, when the chop and drop is what you need to look for. So there is so many layers that you need to discuss about it. Both can be beneficial, and I like your approach. Do a beautiful inoculum with compost and extract, and then you can use this chop and drop as an extra layer of protection against losing the moisture, things that will affect biology in the end of the day. But I think that the major point is that be critical about the techniques. Don't just listen and apply. Investigate, why do I want to use that? And test, will this work with Soil Food Web or not? Because we also have to figure out how the many different beautiful techniques we have, when they work, and because this will optimize our issue. So, sorry, our use, not issue. Which was, I would ask. So the next question is from, sorry if I'm not going to say your name correct, but my brain goes to the Portuguese. Agape. Nick, did the cow manure have, sorry, look?
It could be a Gabi. I'm not sure.
Could be, yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Nick, did the cow manure have straw mix on it?
Did the what, sorry?
The cow manure, it was mixed with straw?
Yes, it did. We had, it was cow manure that came from a neighbor of ours that was housing cattle in a shed, and it was the bedding. So it was lots of straw, which was our own straw, and that's before we started chopping all the straw and putting it straight back onto the fields. And it was a material that I kind of had to use. It was either going to go on the field as cow manure, or I was going to make a compost with it. And I didn't want to use it because I was worried about, they're not organic cattle. So I was worried about what insecticides the guy had put on his cattle, what was in, you know, what was in the feces. I didn't know what he was feeding the cows. You know, I just so much I didn't know, and I was having this material, and I just didn't want to put all these potential pathogens back into my soil, and it was anaerobic. Yeah, it just smelled, you know, anaerobic. So I thought I needed to do something with it. So yeah, we just had a go, and actually I had a go at doing 50% cow muck, 50% wood chip, and then we did lots of different proportions of that. So I did 80-20. I did all sorts of different types of trials on the cow muck, but I don't use it anymore. So it's not to say I wouldn't use it, but I've got these amazing green legumes and herbage, and the government are paying me money to do it. You know, capture carbon. You know, why wouldn't I use that rather than using a material that I know very little about? But you know, if I work with a farmer who's got loads of cows, and we use his muck, and it makes really good compost. It's great. It's, you know, but I don't choose it for my farm. And Norfolk isn't known for its cattle in terms of the number of cows in Norfolk. There's not many about, Carla.
Nick, you mentioned in your presentation, sorry, Carla,
No,
you
go
mentioned in your presentation that you learned something about using cow muck where it was fresh versus
Yeah.
aged. What?
So we it's all about the nitrogen level within that muck. So and we have a lot of outdoor pigs in Norfolk, and we've got a lot of farmers who are trying to use outdoor pig muck to make compost. Now, there's several problems with that. The first major problem is that they use a lot when they scrape it off the field. There's a lot of soil in with the muck, and they all believe that it's very high nitrogen muck, but it's been outside. It's had rain on it. You know what I'm going to say, Carla. There is no nitrogen left in that muck at all. It's all leached out. It's gone through the soil profile. So the fresher the muck, the higher the nitrogen element of it. And you want to use as fresh muck as you can, in my experience. Stuff that's been left outside in big heaps, that's heated up, you just start losing that level of nitrogen. So it's harder to make using muck that's old and, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you agree,
In
Carla?
the course, yeah, 100%. And in the course, we'll go over how to teach you guys to dry this high-end material as well and properly store it. So you're going to adjust the recipe as it goes, and you can use it. But if you live in the field, you can use maybe as brown material, but like Nick said, it's very important to know the origin of the material, especially for working with organic farmers, which, by the way, the school highly, highly encourage you to review your country regulation for organics. And if you are exporting for US, you need to follow the USDA organic regulation. So be aware of that, because they can be very detail-oriented, and your mentor will also help you on that. So Nick, I'm gonna move to the next question, is one from our student, Reese. Can you tell us about the dimensions of each windrow and how do you source your wood chips?
Okay, so that is so the dimensions of the windrow come by the machine. So we can only go as wide as the machine and as high as the machine. And when we start the windrow, it is if I remember, about 2.8 meters wide and about, gosh, 1.5 meters, 1.8, something like that high. But that's going just below the water spouts that we have to have water coming out. And obviously, as you go through that composting process, the heap will get smaller and smaller, just like it does in a tower. So if you note we always have two windrows very close together. So once we get to the maturation period where we've gone through the heating process and we're now going, right, it's done, we now need it to mature now, we tend to put two piles into one. So we keep that one big pile rather than two small piles. I think it's better for moisture retention. That pile will still be about 2.8 wide, but will be probably about a meter high, meter and a bit high. That's all.
And can you talk to us a little bit about the process of the moisture management, because it doesn't end once the pile reaches ambient temperature? How do you manage on windrows?
So we do exactly the same thing as we would in a pile. So if I have the privilege of sitting on my composter, which I tend to do on my windrow machine, I just love it. We'll dig in, squeeze, take a handful of compost, give it a good old squeeze, and if we see a drop just coming through our fingers, then we know you're about 50%. And doesn't need to be any more than that for me. And then I adjust my forward speed, and we normally move at 0.2 kilometers an hour, so quite slow. Or we can go down as low as 0.1 kilometers, depending on whether the pile is dry and I need to hydrate it, and the pump is working at its full capacity. The only thing I can do is go slower. But I tend to only compost at about between 0.15 and 0.2 is my forward speed. And the water, again, when I've done a bit, I move a few hundred yards, I get out, go behind and squeeze it again, and just see how much moisture I'm getting out of that windrow.
Beautiful. And the second portion of Ree's question is, how do you source your wood chips?
We are very fortunate because we have quite a lot of woodland, and the previous manager never cut any wood down. So, and as part of our rewilding project, we had to take 30% of our woodland away. So I was able to chip quite a lot of my own chips. But we do have a source of, we got 2 or 3 people in this area in the UK that sell wood. So I'm sourcing predominantly hardwoods, certainly no pines. If I have had pines, and we kind of leave those out for at least a year to minimum 6 months, but about a year to lose the kind of, got that antibacterial sap within it, which you smell. So I kind of leave those out, still use them, and they've made good compost, and I maybe try and inoculate them maybe. But we normally use hardwoods, and we've got some suppliers that can sell us wet chip, freshly chipped, which is quite expensive. In the UK, it's about £52 a ton. So what's that in dollars, Luke? You'll have to work that one out. I'm sorry.
That's about $65, something like
that. Okay, a ton. And you think obviously we use quite a lot because we've got quite a lot of windrow.
Yep. Oh, thank you. So the next question is from Agape. He wants to hear a little bit about who are your customers. You don't need to give names, but he's interested to know the sector that you are working with now.
Well, thanks for the question, Carla. As things have progressed, and I've only been sort of running my business about 1.5 years now, and we've seen a massive change in our customers already. So I was doing a lot with like local garden centres. We have a lot of allotments in the UK, people having little patches of ground where they're growing veg, garden centres, all those community ventures, which is great. And and I kind of tend to help them for free. I don't charge for them because I want to put something back myself, and it isn't all about the money for me. I'm making a good living, but I want to try and help those communities if I can. And now the interest in all this is going to big farms, large scale farming operations, where they want to understand how I utilize the government schemes that we operate, and how that compost journey will help them, whether it's something they want to do. So I've seen more now the interest from large scale farming operations than I have those small scale at the beginning. Now I really don't want to lose contact with those small garden centers, communities, schools, and all those things that mean a lot to me. And I kind of use the big guys to help me pay for the little guys, because they can kind of afford it, you know. So that's what I do.
A little bit of Robin Hood on your end.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Good. Thank you. So the next question is from Ib, and it's a beautiful question as well. Thank you, Ib. How many kilograms of compost do you use per hectare when spraying extract?
Right. Okay. So I use my cartridge that I've made holds about 200 kilos of compost, and we know that because we have some very accurate scales on the machine. So I know every time I fill up the compost, because as you know, Carla, composts, because of the moisture, different weights, different microbial activities going in all these composts. So it's really interesting to see the weight of the compost going in. So the cage holds about 200 kgs, and I'm applying that 200 kgs is in 4,000 litres of water, and I apply 400 litres a hectare. So I'm using the equivalent of 20 kilos of compost per hectare. That's why it's a lot cheaper than using 5 tons a hectare. Now, I then weigh, you know what I'm going to say, Carla? I then have all the chips afterwards. So though there's normally about, I don't know, 50 to 100 kilos of chip left. And I take that out, and that goes back into the bucket. It goes back onto a windrow. So it all depends whether you want to say, I'm using 10 kilos once you take the chip out, or whether it's 20 kilos if you want to leave the chip in. But that also depends on how much you want to apply. Because sometimes if I want to use a really strong, high level of microbial activity in my extract, I might do 2 of my cartridges. So I might do 40 litres a hectare, or 40 kilos a hectare, and put 400 kilos in. So mix it around for half an hour, take the cartridge out, fill it up again, put a new cartridge in, and go again.
Just for our American viewers, that's about 17 pounds per acre. So about 17 pounds of compost per acre.
Thank you,
I'm
Luke.
you're 40 pounds per hectare. Sorry, just for people in the US.
And how do you recognize a grade school student? When he answers depends, and then he explains. So you nailed it. Depends on how is your compost, how is the soil, which crop do you have, which time of the year you are. So thank you.
I'm sorry for not answering the question, you know,
No.
but there's so many ifs and buts, you know.
But I think that you answer beautifully, because these are the starting point, right? These are the numbers that work for you now on this specific farm that we're working with. And we started somehow. So with these first numbers, this is why you have the microscope as your left and right arm. You're going to check the soil and see how the plants are reacting, see all the information nature is giving you, like Dr. Elaine said, tell us every single webinar. Listen to the nature. The plant are going to give you the sign of what you need. If it's, I mean, if it's too much, we didn't see that yet, but we need to understand the signals that you're receiving daily basis.
Absolutely.
Nick, one other question is that you started as a farmer, then you migrate to the consultancy business, and you mentioned that the area you're working with now, they're transitioning for organic. So they want to know a little bit more of where you are now and how this transition was for you, in a sense that how much more of the extra skills from your life you had to put on your toolbox to speed up your consultancy process.
Thanks, Carla. Well, I've dabbled in organic throughout my whole career, where I've worked at different farms that have had small areas of organic, and I've had so many experiences in my life that I've had to continue in the job I'm in because I have a family to support. If I had my time again, I might have, you know, I felt I would have lost my integrity if I had stayed, and I should have gone earlier, because we were applying chemicals where we were devastating wildlife and damaging soils. And I can remember years and years ago when I first started, we were burning straw in fields, and you could listen to all the mammals being burnt alive. Every time I think back to it, it just horrifies me that I've damaged so much of wildlife in my career. So the transition from a conventional farmer to an organic farmer was one that I was pushing hard to do, and I honestly felt that the soil food web was the missing link for me to be able to prove to my bosses that we can really change this. Because, hey, look, as we all know, everything comes from the soil, yeah? Everything comes from the soil. So if we get that right, then we stand a real great chance of transforming not only the soils, but certainly the biodiversity crisis that we find ourselves in. And we've seen, certainly on our farm, we've seen we have a pan-species specialist who basically goes around sweep netting, vacuuming invertebrates from our fields. We did a baseline, and we've now, just after 5 years, he's come back to do another study. We're seeing a huge, we can't really count the numbers, but there's a feeling that numbers have absolutely increased, but we're seeing more diversity of invertebrates across the whole farm, versus neighbors who are still using the conventional techniques, and numbers are down and diversity is really low. So the transition for me, Carla, was really easy. I wanted it so badly for the last section of my career, my final hurrah, and I honestly felt that the soil food web honestly gave my business and the business I still work for. I'm still a farm manager at Wild Ken Hill. It's given us the answers that we need to transform the business, not only for the owner's son, who's now taking over the business, but for his children. And we need to look generations ahead here.
That's true. And very powerful. Thank you, Nick. The next question is from Derek. He want to know what kind of water you are using for application on your windrows, and I imagine that's also for the moisture management. And which are your thoughts on using a bit of compost to supplement the windrow, to bring inoculums to the windrow? What would likely need to be after the high heat portion of, let me reread that. The compost supplement would be done after the thermophilic stages are done. What do you think about your procedure on that?
So the first part, Carla, just remind me the first part again, sorry.
which kind of water you're using
Yeah,
on
okay.
your windrow
Thank
applications.
you. So let's do it in sections.
Mhm.
So the water, we used to use just basic tap water at the start, full of chlorine. And then I used to add some humic acid in with the water. Obviously, tap water is very expensive, and B, we shouldn't be using it just to put on compost, in my opinion. So we did sink a borehole. We're very thin soils over chalk, and we have quite a lot of aquifers underneath us. So we were very lucky, and we dropped a well, and we use the well water now. But our water is very hard, so I use citric acid to just soften the water a little bit as well for the microbes. So yeah, so tap water to start off with, which was A, very expensive, and B, morally we shouldn't be using it. And now we sunk a borehole, and we have some tanks that we pump the water into, and we use that for our applications on the field and also on the compost. We could use water that's come off the rainwater that's come off the roofs. I choose not to, because I'm worried about all the pathogens from the birds. We have a lot of wildlife, geese, birds all over the roofs on our farm, and I just wouldn't want to make this amazing product and then ruin it in the last minute. It would just seem nonsensical. So yeah, that's what we do. And the second part of the question, Carla, was, sorry?
Your thoughts on using a bit of compost tea to supplement the windrows.
Yeah. So that's a really great question, because we've actually have done that where we've got a windrow, because I make it sound like I make amazing windrows, doesn't it? I've had some failures, you know. So I do. I make an extract from some good compost, and I know where all my good compost is. I'm not telling you, Carly, you'll come and take it. No, and I'll make a great, very strong inoculant, and then I'll just dribble it through the compost. But I only do that right at the end. I'm not when we've gone through all the heat stages. Obviously, if that's heating up again, I just don't. I'm wasting my time. So I wait right until the end. So it's my last pass through with the composter. I'll do that.
Can I just make a tiny supplement here, Nick? Fail, and I love our students for many reasons, and again, we learn a lot of them. One of them taught us that fail is not because it didn't work, it's just only the first attempt in learning. Brilliant.
and you know, we've made some great learnings over the time, but can I tell you, there's not been one pile of compost that we've learned about that we have not used. So I have not wasted any compost. No compost, throughout the process, nothing gets wasted.
Beautiful.
Nick, on the subject of water, just out of interest, do you look at the salts in the borehole water at all?
Yeah, we get it tested. Sorry, yeah, great one, Luke. Yeah, we any water that I use, I send a sample off to be tested, so I know what levels of salts or whatever contaminants that might be in that water, wherever it's coming from. Because I am working with other people that have water coming from very strange places. So it is nice to know what is in it. You know, yeah, it's really nice to know what's in it.
And the importance of salts in the water. I have a vague recollection from when I did the lectures with Elaine a few years ago. High levels of salts can make it very difficult for the biology to survive. But I don't remember exactly why. Perhaps you can elaborate on it.
Well, I'm sure Carla can do that.
Yeah, it's a natural way to kill microorganisms. This is why old folks use salt to dry meat, because it preserves, so it kills all the microorganisms, especially bacteria. and we need bacteria to heat up the pile. So if we are putting salt water, we're gonna kill the guys that are gonna heat up the pile for us. Yep. So the next question is, sorry,
Well
go ahead.
remembered, Luke. Well remembered, Luke.
I'm learning such a lot from this webinar, so thank you.
We're gonna look through the FC quizzes again, Nick. Very soon, Luke. Very soon.
Well, I've had my first attempt in learning, so I'm ready for my second one now.
Deal. So, Nick, we saw in your presentation that you were like, this is intrinsic for large scale. There is no way to run from that. We need to use heavy equipment, heavy machinery. Doesn't matter which part of the planet you are. It's only scalable if we're going to use large equipment. How are you dealing with the compaction from the use of those equipment?
Okay, so
And this question is from Sue. Thank you, Sue.
So we've for many years we've used controlled traffic farming. So we use satellite guidance, which is so accurate now, 2 centimeters, and all our fields have lines, tram lines, going through them at 6 meters. So every 6 meters there's a wheeling that's compacted the soil. We don't veer from that, and we accept that 6 meters across all our fields means we're putting a wheel on 27% of our field. Now, conventionally, if you don't use satellite guidance or you use multiple widths of machinery, that number could be as high as 87%. So we've reduced that dramatically down to 27. We have to, by applying our inoculants, our combine, our whatever, drill, planter, everything's at 6 meters. That's the minimum width we use. So we're reducing the soil compaction across the whole field, and we're putting it in one place constantly. And we can go back there time after time after time because it records it on the satellite guidance systems. And we use the John Deere systems, which are incredibly accurate.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there's so many new things with technology that we love. It's just how we're going to use it. That's the major trick.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nick. There is another very important question that normally is the first thing that any farmer is going to ask us, beside how much this is going to cost me, is about the yield. So Janice is asking, how did you notice the trend of the yields across the years in your projects?
Yeah. What I should have done, I should have put that up. I do apologize. And it's not that I'm trying to hide anything. As Luke and Carla know, I don't hide anything. So we've seen our yields on our farm at Ken Hill over 15 years prior to us going down this route with the soil food web have been an average of 7.2 tons a hectare of wheat. And that's not a lot when you're applying all maximum amount of fertilizer and lots of chemicals, yeah? In fact, that's pretty bad. But that's our soils. They're so damaged, as we said before. So when we stopped using fertilizers, we expected that yield to take a nosedive, yeah? And it did. We got down to 1.5 tons a hectare after the 3rd year of no fertilizer, but we were still in that transition. So we were in the worst place. We hadn't got any fertilizer. All the nitrate, quite a lot of the nitrate had gone from the soils, and we hadn't got the biology right yet. So we were going down before we were going back up again. This last year, and it might be the year. Let's be honest. It might be because we had a good year. We had my barley yield is normally 6.5. We had 4.2 tons with no fertilizers, no chemicals. So that was great news. and they were on fields that had had 4 applications of a compost extract, and now back into a cover crop, ready for next spring. My wheat did 3.1, and for one variety, and 2.2. I'm going to say 7, but I think let's say 6. 2.6 tons a hectare, which is not good, but we are now selling into a market that is paying double for over conventional, because we're using a variety of wheat that is that artisan bakers like, and they like the story, and they're prepared to pay a lot more for our wheat. So actually you could double that. So you're talking relatively 6 tons a hectare in terms of, because we're getting double the amount of price for the yield. But I've kind of made a pact with myself, Carla, that I want to get to 7 tons a hectare with biology. And I'm from what I've seen so far, I'm absolutely going to do it. I'm absolutely going to do it. And we're going to be consistent. That isn't going to be up and down, up and down. As our soils become more alive and the water holding capacity of our soils improves, I want to see some consistency, and I want to get to that 7 ton a hectare. And who knows? Let's see if we can get beyond it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
How many years? Sorry, Carla, if I may. I'm just wondering, how many years have you been treating with really good extract? Would you say
1 year?
1 year. Okay. So
now I'm right at the start, really. I mean, we were doing it prior to that, Luke, but I was applying 10 hectares in a day with small equipment, trying to get it right. And I've learned so much about getting over the land quickly. You know, if I can cover my farm in a day and a half with extract, a day and a half with extract. Wow. Now, when you get to those sorts of scales, then it's not a job, is it? You know, it happens so quickly, and you need to simplify things. And I think that's the experience I've had in my career, being very practical guy. I can see the areas where we need to be heading, and we'll just, you know, we'll divert. We won't do that. We'll do this. We need to get microbes on. We need to take filters out. We need to maximize. I'm going to get as much of that compost as I can on that field in a water solution, and I need washed chips at the end of it.
That's 400 hectares or about 1,000 acres in a day and a half. You're applying extract across the whole 1,000 acres.
Yep,
that's amazing.
Yep.
I was just looking.
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I was just looking at the results from the. I know it was a very small patch, but the lettuce that you did. I was looking back at your slide. Slide 38 showed that, you know, the treated sample delivered about 50% increase in yield over the untreated. So that's quite a big difference there. But it's taking you longer to see the results on the large scale. Which
when you scale this up, you know, small plots, you know, you can manipulate small plots as well. You guys know, you know, Carla, you know this, and that's why in farming they do very small plot trials for wheat. They're doing small trial plots, and I've seen how that works. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on that probably isn't right to get those final results. So small trials, we need to show farmers that the whole farm can be changed, not just a small plot. Anyone can do a small plot.
Yeah, and the benefit with small plots, sorry, especially for the stage 3 of the CTP course, is besides of you having that hands-on experience on learning how to plan, right? Create a management plan for the farm, visualize how you're going to test in a small portion of the farm, so you know how your compost is going to behave, the application, you're going to have a pretty good idea. So when you scale up, you have that start numbers to go, because we cannot play with a full farm growing season because the farmers have bills to pay in the end. So it's about that responsibility as a consultant that we need to have as well. But I totally agree with Nick. When you go from small to large size, is another realm. It's different. And normally the large farmer areas, the soil is much more damaged than the normal locations of small plots.
Because
So
they've looked after them better than the farmer has, and there's been less
exactly.
fertilizers, less chemicals being used. All the communities that I've worked with who are growing veg, you put there. It's really interesting to look under the microscope on their soils, because there's a lot more life going on. You know, it's a joy to do. It gets boring when you look at large scale farming because all you count is bacteria. You know, it's really boring.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see anything.
And actually, that's one of our lab techs. They're just like, hey, I'm used to see beautiful microorganisms in the compost. Now the clients are sending the first soil samples, and I'm just calling that dirt. Can I have some beautiful things coming on my direction? But that's the job we're doing here, right? So, Nick, we're receiving tons of questions. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go over all of them. But a lot of appreciation of your work, of you sharing your data, your results, and a lot of people want to know where you're headed, the next steps, and especially your extractor, when you're going to be in the market for us to buy it.
Well, as I said, you guys tonight are the first people to see it. So I think the company Toenfer and myself will be there's a show in England called Groundswell, and we'll be demoing it. Hopefully the Soil Food Web will be joining me. We'll be demoing it at Groundswell hopefully next year. And there's a lot of interest already for it. It's really exciting, and we want to help large-scale farmers, small-scale farmers, and there's tips and tricks we can use just to keep that cost down and still have the same result. And I hope going forwards for me, I just hope I can just help and influence as many amazing young people in this space as I possibly can. With the time that I've got left, whether it's with the Soil Food Web or with my farming businesses.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you join Carla and others in the mentoring team, Nick. You're going to be just an amazing addition to the team, bringing all of that knowledge and experience of 40 odd years in farming. We're really excited to have you.
Yep. So Nick, we are on the top of the hour. Do you have any last message for the day?
I think I'm gonna be like a stuck record, I'm afraid. So as I said right at the beginning, I mean, if I speak to quite a few people who phone me up and ask me, I'm looking at doing the foundation course, should I do it? And you know, I always urge everybody to do the foundation course because it'll just light a fire under you. If you've got that passion, that tiny bit of passion in soil and where your food comes from, which is so important. And I would urge anybody just to press that button where there's a deal on or where there's not a deal on the foundation courses or the packages that are going on. Just do it. You will never regret it. And that's probably the only thing I can say, guys.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Nick. We do, as you know, have a promotion on at the moment. So, folks, I'm putting a link in the chat right now. You can register at the moment for the foundation courses at a discounted rate and get stage 1 of the consultant or grower training program free, which is 26 hours of mentoring with someone like Nick or Carla. So I'll just put that in the chat right now for you.
Thank you, Luke. So, and if you don't, I mean, after the meeting, after the webinar, you need to find the link again, you can always email info@soilfoodweb.com, and our team are going to be there to help you. Luke, any other last message for the day?
Only to say that we've got a really exciting, well, actually, I want to first of all apologize on Dr. Elaine's behalf that she couldn't be here. She did email me a few minutes ago. She was trying to make it, but unfortunately, there were personal things going on in her life today. But she will be in next week's webinar. That's on the 24th with Ib Bora, presenting another former farmer who's turned to the soil food web approach. We're really excited to see his presentation next week. And of course, the rest of the series, Carla, we've got one on the 24th, one on the 31st, and one on the 6th. We've got Ib next week, followed by a consultant on the 31st, Renaud, who's going to be presenting his latest project, the first regenerative tobacco farm, I think, in the world. And they've seen great results. They've reduced their fertilizers to 0, and yields have not dropped. They dropped 3%, I believe, which is I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but that's one of the data points that Renaud will be reporting on. And then our final webinar of the series on the 6th of November, we'll be hearing from Todd Harrington, who trained with Dr. Elaine about over 15 years ago, has had a phenomenal career as a soil food web consultant, and has got just project after project that he'll be sharing lots of success stories with us in that webinar on the 6th of November. And Dr. Elaine will be here next week. So sorry you missed her today, and she's sorry she missed you, but she'll be here next week. And Nick, I hope you'll join us as well if you're available.
Love to.
Awesome.
And in the name of the school, I want to hands up, thank you for the entire staff that's behind the scene making this webinar happen. There is a lot of things that go behind, so thank you once more. Even we had the glitch, but we are here together for the love of the soil. I want to thank you, every one of you that joined us here. We know that 2 hours, it's not a lot of time, easy to find. We really appreciate you being here. And remember that you can rewatch this webinar many times as you need in our YouTube channel. Spread the love, work the soil health, and we see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
When we're talking about the soil,
Don't forget to click that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to stay updated with all our new videos.